this, I'm pleased to invite and introduce on stage Mr. Ravi Kumar. He is the CEO of Cognizant, an expert, of course, in melding AI with business strategy. Mr. Kumar, welcome on stage. He will be enlightening us about generative AI's power to shape the future of work and its seamless integration with human efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to all of you. Always love coming to India. The energy, the enthusiasm, and the vibrancy just kind of rubs off as you get to India. So the first thing I would do is, I have 15 minutes to talk about generative AI. I know I'm not the first speaker speaking on generative AI in the last 1 year. I'm sure you've heard many of the speakers across the world talking about it. I'll pivot it in a direction so that you get some takeaways from today. What I'm going to do, talk a little bit about generative AI, but before that I'll introduce Cognizant. Cognizant is a Fortune 500, roughly $20 billion of revenues, 360,000 employees globally. 260,000 of them actually are based in India. So 70% of our workforce is in India. We're the second largest tech services employer in India. So pretty big in India. The heart of the company is in India. Tech services companies pivot on technology discontinuities which power human capital needs. And the generative AI discontinuity, which is going to be the next big one, is very different from the past, but it is going to actually power economic prosperity. It's going to change the anatomy of jobs, skills, tasks, occupations. It's probably going to create upward social mobility. So we're kind of going to pivot a little bit about that as I speak. And before I do that, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what happened in tech discontinuities of the last 40 or 50 years. If you go back to microprocessors in the 70s, and they all go through an S-curve. The microprocessors in the 70s, it took almost 20 years for personal computers to come in, and that was a slow start. Most tech discontinuities are general-purpose technologies. General-purpose technologies spawn downstream innovation. They are very pervasive, and they improve over time. That's what general-purpose technologies are all about. Generative AI is also a general-purpose technology, but it's very different from the past. If you go back to the internet started way back in the 80s, but the downstream innovation, which is on search engines, actually kicked off in the 90s. And actually, none of us actually remember the most popular search engine in the 90s. I'm quite sure many of us don't remember that. Alta Vista was the most popular search engine in the 90s. None of us remember because we all live in an era where the further downstream innovation which came from Google in 1998 was the one which actually powered the search engine story. If you go back to the mobile revolution, very similar. The mobile revolution started in the 70s, if you really look at it. But smartphones really became very popular in 2001. And in some ways, when the first iPhone version kind of got released, that's the time, it's almost 35 years since the mobile revolution started. That's the time actually the information age kind of got created. So if you look at tech discontinuities of the past, they went through this S-curve. It was a slow start. Then it actually accelerated, and then it plateaued. Generative AI is going to be a much steeper S-curve. It's going to be a much steeper S-curve. And why would it be a much steeper S-curve? It would be a much steeper S-curve because it kind of actually diffuses very fast. Why does it diffuse very fast? If you go back to the 70 years of computing history, you will realize that almost in every change in computing history, you would notice that humans wanted to understand computers. This is the first time computers would like to understand humans, and the interface is going to be natural language. And if the interface is natural language, it's going to diffuse really fast. Just imagine technology built in the Silicon Valley in generative AI will diffuse to a farmer in rural India at a rapid pace. A farmer in rural India who's actually going to speak in a local dialect which would access computers and create, in some ways, a creator economy in that rural economy. And that is the pace at which it will move. And therefore, this S-curve is much, much steeper. It will be a slow start, a short runway, and then it will take off. And it will accelerate much faster than the past S-curves we've actually seen in the past. So what I'm going to talk a little bit about is the jagged frontier of AI capabilities. What I mean by that is the blue line is actually a workflow. Most times, a discontinuity of this kind will actually impact tasks. It doesn't as much impact jobs. It doesn't actually impact occupations. These tasks are on the blue curve, but AI has the capability to sharply fall off and actually take off again and sharply fall off. What that means is, for some tasks, AI will be very efficient, and for some tasks, it's not going to be as efficient. So you need a human in the loop. So in some ways, it's going to be very jagged. And that's why, jobs are not going to get disrupted immediately, but tasks within jobs are going to get disrupted. And what's really going to happen is you need a human in the loop. There was a scientist in the 50s called Alan Turing who actually spoke about how machines should be more efficient than humans, which can replace humans. And that's a trap. It's a trap because computers and machines should not be built to replace humans. They should be built to amplify human potential. They should be built to augment and enhance human potential. So I actually believe that as you go through this curve and as technology improves, these curves are going to look different, but you always need a human in the loop. Some tasks, for example, if you want to run an ad campaign and brainstorm on it, AI will do it very well. But if you want to point to data, or if you want to do, say, for example, a very precision-based task, you need humans in the loop. And therefore, I think it's going to be a curve which is always going to have humans in the loop. Cognizant and Oxford Economics ran a study for 18,000 tasks, 1,000 occupations. And what we really did in that process is to understand every job and every occupation and what the tasks in that occupation have an exposure to AI. We took each job, we cut it down to tasks, we looked at the significance of those tasks. Some tasks are more important, some tasks are less important. Based on the importance of the task, we created a weighted average. And then what we really did was we looked at the exposure score for every task. We also calculated something called the friction score, which is about identifying tasks which get automated, and can you actually reskill the people who are working on this task. If you can reskill, the friction scores are lower. If you actually cannot reskill, the friction scores are going to be very high. So some jobs which have tasks where the friction scores are very high, you need to actually put a lot of effort to reskill, and some tasks you have to put lesser effort to reskill. This is also one of the few discontinuities which has happened, which is going to disrupt a white-collar worker more than a blue-collar worker. It's going to disrupt knowledge workers much more than blue-collar workers. So what we did from there is we actually found out what is the impact it does. In the US economy, it impacted $1 trillion by 2032 because this is a general purpose technology. It'll actually spawn downstream innovation. It'll improve over time. So over a period of time, the exposure scores go up. 90% of the jobs get disrupted. Only 10% of the jobs don't get disrupted. 90% of the jobs have an exposure score of more than 10%. 52% of the jobs actually have an exposure score of 25%. What that means is 25% of the jobs will actually go through a disruption. The tasks in the jobs will go through a disruption. So we created a bubble chart of exposure scores and friction scores for all professions, all jobs, and we actually identified the tasks in those jobs which have an exposure to AI. It kind of expands from the year we are in today all the way to 2032, where the disruption will continue on AI. Some will get disrupted more, some will get disrupted less. Some already have a level of disruption today which is very high. So that's how we kind of looked at the impact of occupations and the impact of jobs and the tasks underneath it. So the next big difference is generative AI is going to be an equalizer. It's some kind of a leveler. It's interesting. Every technology which has come so far has always impacted the less productive workers. This is a technology which will impact the more productive workers. However, the less productive workers will actually get the most benefit out of this. So it's some kind of a leveler. The less productive workers will get more benefit out of it. The more productive workers will get less benefit out of it. We did a study, and we found out that the bottom 50 percentile get affected by 43%. So you get much higher productivity using this. The upper 50 percentile only gets 17% benefit. And what that means is it's kind of going to be a leveler of sorts. What it also does is it's going to hand over expertise on your fingertips. If you have expertise on your fingertips, the entry barriers for specialized jobs is going to go down. If the entry barriers for specialized jobs will go down, you can actually do a breadth of capability using AI, enhancing your skills, but you could potentially have a capability which is not necessary for that particular job. As an example, if you're an equity research analyst, analytics and mathematical skills are very important. You don't need them to enter that job because you could actually have expertise of mathematics coming from an AI algorithm on your fingertips. So we're going to transition from an information economy to a creator economy where you can actually have that expertise on your hands. So that's the kind of change we're going to see as we go forward in this space. So it is also going to create upward social mobility, because as you actually use this technology in a more mature way, you're going to access jobs which you did not have access to, and therefore create that accessibility for jobs. So what next? So as we go forward in this journey, reskilling is going to become very important. Some of the panelists spoke about it before. As evolution of this technology happens, you're going to move from task automation to reorganizing businesses, reorganizing process, and then it's going to be deeply embedded into organizational muscle. Safety, trust, and equity will make it very responsible. If you don't want to fall into the Turing trap, as I spoke about, you will have to responsibly navigate it. Responsibly navigating it means you don't replace the humans in the loop, but you enhance human potential by doing this. And finally, what I want to say is humans care for humans. I'm in India. I'm going to take an example of cricket to wrap up my conversation. you're never going to see a machine bowling in cricket to a human batting, and you'll never be excited to see that. You'll always use a machine to amplify the human. You'll always use it to practice yourself. You'll always want a human to bowl to a batter who's also a human. So humans will care for humans. The context of machines is always going to be in the context of humans. So AI will always be a powerful tool to amplify human potential. And that's the power of this new discontinuity we're going to see in the future of work and future of jobs. Thank you again.